host, The Stephen A. Smith Show, starts right now.
Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the national airwaves of ESPN Radio and ESPN News, 250 plus markets across the United States of America. Check your AM, FM listing nearest you, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, prep your engine for winter with Pennzoil Synthetic Motor Oil. The first motor oil made from natural gas, not crude oil. The proof is in the Pennzoil. Also, the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, making it easy to bundle your home and car insurance. Always a privilege to have my next guest on the line. NFL analyst extraordinaire for ESPN, contributor on a weekly basis to First Take. Catch him on NFL Live as well, former two-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots. Only reason he wanted to play with the Jets was because he's from the New York tri-state area, New Jersey, whatever. There ain't no way in hell you can want to go from the New England Patriots to the New York Jets for any other reason. Got 2 rings with the Patriots. We know better than him having that with the New York Jets. But he's still an outstanding analyst. My buddy, the one and only Damien Woody. What's going on, big time? How are you, man?
I'm good, man. That was a really good introduction, Steve. Man, I really appreciate that.
Not a problem at all. Let's get to this, Damien. Your thoughts about Jalen Ramsey's going to play in a Jacksonville Jaguars uniform tonight against the Tennessee Titans on Thursday Night Football. It's expected. He's expecting this to be his last game. Your thoughts about how, him demanding to be traded, him requesting a trade, rather. Your thoughts about his situation in Jacksonville and whether or not he should even be playing tonight.
Well, first of all, unlike basketball where you have a lot more games, in football you only have 16. The Jacksonville Jaguars are sitting at 0-2 right now, and for the Jaguars, you have to put it all out there. I understand the trade rumors, and it's looking more and more like Jalen Ramsey is going to be traded, but right in the immediacy right now, you need all the bodies you have in order to win a football game. That's got to be the singular focus for the Jacksonville Jaguars. As far as the trade situation is, I think this is a situation where the relationship between Jalen Ramsey and Tom Coughlin, who runs the organization. They've been butting heads for a while, particularly in the offseason. Jalen Ramsey is the type of guy that, he likes to work out in his own hometown in Nashville, Tennessee. And, they've been bumping heads for a while, showing up, Jalen Ramsey showing up to training camp in the Brinks truck. I'm sure that Tom Coughlin didn't like that look heading into training camp. So, I think it's just spilled over to the point where a guy like Jalen Ramsey, who's a superstar in this league, is just flexing. Now he's just flexing his muscle and trying to force a trade.
Josina Anderson reported the Kansas City Chiefs, Baltimore Ravens, Minnesota Vikings, Oakland Raiders, Seattle Seahawks, and the Philadelphia Eagles have all called to inquire about the services of Jalen Ramsey. Where would be the best scenario for him and why?
Well, I've said, could you imagine Jalen Ramsey as a Kansas City Chief? I mean, my goodness, you put Jalen Ramsey on that defense, which, if you watch the Kansas City Chiefs over the past couple of years, it's been pedestrian at best, particularly in the back end and the secondary. You put him on that defense, a guy who's a man-to-man cover corner guy who can lock it down, control the half of the side of the field on the defensive side. Boy, you're talking about boosting your chances as the Kansas City Chiefs to try to represent the AFC in a Super Bowl. Baltimore is also an intriguing option because we all know that the Ravens have been known for defense for years, and they have Earl Thomas at safety, who's a perennial Pro Bowler. So you put Jalen Ramsey in that secondary. That would tremendously help that Baltimore Ravens defense. So I would say the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens are two intriguing options for me.
Kansas City or Baltimore, is that the only scenario in which you envision somebody having the potential to knock off these New England Patriots?
When I look at the landscape of the AFC, I mean, those two teams are the ones that really stick out right now. Granted, this is, we're in September. We have a long ways to go. Injuries can factor in and all those type of things. But, when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, listen, the firepower that they have on offense, and obviously starts with Patrick Mahomes, and Tyreek Hill is out, but when he comes back, it's just going to be another piece that's going to be, pretty much unstoppable for the Kansas City Chiefs. Sammy Watkins is looking like the Sammy Watkins of old, and, Travis Kelce at tight end, Damien Williams at running back. So they have all the pieces. And then when you talk about the Baltimore Ravens, obviously Lamar Jackson is lighting the league up right now, granted against, the Miami Dolphins and the Arizona Cardinals, but still, the way that Lamar Jackson has been playing has just been lights out, particularly as it relates to throwing the football. And obviously, any Baltimore team, you're going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens defense. So combine those two aspects, and right now you got to look at Kansas City Chiefs and Baltimore Ravens right now, the teams in the AFC that could possibly give the New England Patriots trouble.
We're talking to Damien Woody, NFL analyst for ESPN, right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. One of the things that I'm worried about, let's say, for example, hypothetically speaking, that Jalen Ramsey ended up on the Kansas City Chiefs. Not only would it be a foregone conclusion in the minds of many that it will be Kansas City and New England in the AFC Championship game, I think the downside to that is that you'll have a lot of people looking at that and calling it the Super Bowl because they'll think that nobody from the NFC could compete. Is that your perspective when it comes to the possibility of Jalen Ramsey ending up as a Kansas City Chief or whatever? Or do you look at the NFC as having real viable candidates that can challenge for a Super Bowl title, can challenge Kansas City, can challenge a healthy New England Patriots squad? Which is your view? Which is your view on that?
No, I think there's viable teams in the NFC that will be able to challenge any AFC team. Granted, New England is New England. They got the greatest coach-quarterback combination in NFL history, so everyone knows what you're dealing with when you're talking about the New England Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs. You got the league MVP in Patrick Mahomes and maybe the greatest play caller we've seen in Andy Reid. So we all know about that. But Stephen, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to keep pounding it. The Dallas Cowboys are for real. Dallas Cowboys have one of the best rosters. Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, has been outstanding as far as play design and setting up Dak Prescott. Look really good. John Kennedy, the quarterback coach, has done a great job with Dak Prescott as far as his mechanics, and we haven't even talked about Zeke Elliott getting going really yet. Once he gets into football shape and gets going, that's going to add a whole nother dimension to the Dallas Cowboys. So I think Dallas Cowboys, the Los Angeles Rams, they're teams in the NFC. The Green Bay Packers at some point. Think about this, Stephen A. The Green Bay Packers really are being carried by their defense. And they have the great Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. What's going to happen when Aaron Rodgers get going? So there are teams in the NFC that I think when it's all said and done will be right there to contend along with those two teams in the AFC that we talked about.
What about the Philadelphia Eagles?
Philadelphia Eagles they're another team. Right now, Philadelphia Eagles they're just slammed with injuries really early on. It's September. I mean, you're talking Deshaun Jackson. They got a lot of guys that are injured right now, and obviously, when you think of the Philadelphia Eagles, Carson Wentz comes to mind. Is he going to be able to stay healthy a whole season? But no one can deny Doug Peterson as being one of the better head coaches in the National Football League. It's one of the more talented rosters in the National Football League. If these guys can get healthy, they'll absolutely challenge the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC and will be one of the teams competing to come out of the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Damien Woody right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Let's stick within the NFC East for us on another topic. The Giants obviously decided to make the move to Daniel Jones, electing to bench Eli Manning. Pat Shurmur went up to Dave Gettleman. Dave Gettleman and Pat Shurmur spoke to ownership. They okayed it, but clearly Pat Shurmur is standing alone on an island. Even when he spoke to the media about it, Gettleman wasn't in attendance. Co-owner John Mara was not in attendance. This is clearly Shurmur's decision, and they're allowing him to make it. What do you think about his decision, and how do you think it may end up panning out?
I think Pat Shurmur wanted to, if it were up to Pat Shurmur, I think he would have started the season with Daniel Jones as a starting quarterback. I think this was a situation where, the owner and John Mara, they brought Eli back. They could have easily cut Eli in the offseason. They brought him back. And, Eli Manning started the season as a starting quarterback. But I think, once you look at his team, particularly the defense, took everything into account. The defense, they're going to struggle all year on defense. They're not going to be able to stop anybody. And you look at what's going on offense, obviously a couple, wide receivers suspended, injuries at wide receiver, and just look at how limited Eli Manning is at the quarterback position. I think Pat Shurmur just looked at situations like, you know what? We're playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I want to get going on the future of this franchise with Daniel Jones, especially after the way he played in the preseason.
How do you believe he'll fare against Tampa's defense Sunday?
Well, listen, I think, with that defense being led by Todd Bowles, the new defensive coordinator, it's an attacking defense. They'll come from anywhere. This is not your traditional Tampa Bay defense where it's, the four down, the Tampa 2 that Tony Dungy made famous down in Tampa. This is now more of a multiple defense, 3-4 type of defense where they can come from anywhere. So Daniel Jones, he'll have his work cut out for him. But the one thing that Daniel Jones will bring to the table that Eli just doesn't have right now is, A, his ability to move around. He's a very athletic, mobile quarterback. And 2, his ability to push the ball down the field. That was one of the main complaints of Odell Beckham Jr., the former Giant, was that Eli couldn't get the ball to him. Daniel Jones can. So those are 2 things that we should see out of the New York Football Giants.
Damien Woody right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. One of the other things that I wanted to touch on as this show progresses, we talked about Daniel Jones. We've talked about Jalen Ramsey. We didn't talk about Jamal Adams for the New York Jets. Obviously, he has some very, very strong opinions about the National Football League and them fining him $21,000 for his hit on Baker Mayfield. He and many, many others on the defensive side of the ball over the years have complained about how they've been hamstrung by the National Football League. Your thoughts about what he had to say and why?
Well, listen, first of all, I am a huge fan of Jamal Adams. I think Jamal Adams plays the game the right way. He's one of the best players in the National Football League. But he has what Jamal Adams has to understand is whether he likes or not, the quarterback position is the most important position in sports. People tune in to watch the quarterbacks. And that hit that Jamal Adams got fined on with in regards to Baker Mayfield, I think it's questionable. It's questionable at best. But the league has made it adamant that they're going to try to protect the quarterback as much as possible. Now, I think where the league gets into problems is the consistency as in how they call these these hits, how they levy the fines. There's absolutely inconsistencies as far as how the league goes about it. But make no mistake about it, they're going to protect the quarterbacks at all costs.
Do you think the league, I mean, we've alluded to this, the league being excessive on television earlier today on the show First Take with yours truly and Max and Molly, and you were there as well. I pointed out how if you're the league, here's a way to kind of remedy some of these situations and the complaints on the part of the defense. Okay, no headshots, no shots below the knee. Tackle from the chin down to right above the knee. If you can limit yourself to that, we won't be fixated on every little thing that you do to a quarterback or anybody else for that matter. Just tackle or hit in those areas. So at least we got a better chance of these guys being around and not having to leave games for weeks or months at a time. What do you say to that idea?
Well, I mean, listen, I like that. Again, the problem is the consistency. I mean, you have a hit like Jamal Adams against Baker Mayfield, but then, the hit that took Nick Foles out for weeks, there was nothing. No call, no fine, nothing. And to me, that's the biggest issue that I have with the league is let's be consistent across the board. I mean, listen, it's already the defensive guys are already at a disadvantage, but let's just be consistent in how we call and how we levy these fines because it's just not fair to these guys on that side of the ball, especially when they got to make snap decisions at the blink of an eye.
What are your thoughts about the fact that the Patriots are going against the Jets this week and the Cowboys are going against the Dolphins? The Patriots are 23-point favorites. The Cowboys are 21-point favorites. And it's the first time since 1987 that two teams have been 20-plus point underdogs the same week. And the only other time that's happened was in 1987 when a strike was taking place and the NFL had replacement players. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think when I look at those two games, they're two different scenarios. Obviously, with the Jets, they've been ravaged with injuries, and obviously the quarterback, Sam Darnold, has mono. So that's just something that we've really never seen before as it relates to, a player of that stature getting mono. That's something that the Jets have no control over. But as far as the Dolphins is concerned, listen, clearly this is a tanking situation. It's a total rebuild. I understand that the Dolphins are trying to hit the reset button, but at the same time, I think that, Dominic Foxworth, who was on First Take, and y'all were talking about. I think y'all might have been talking about this. I think you're putting your players in a bad predicament. You're setting, first of all, the veteran guys who are there. You're hurting not only their future as far as where they, putting good tape out there because you're playing next to bad players. If you ask any former player, regardless of how good you are, if you're playing next to bad, players that aren't good, that are not supposed to be there, guess what? It brings you down. So you're hurting possibly their future employment with other teams because you decided to start tanking. And on top of that, you could possibly setting guys up where they're getting injured out there because of the guys that you're putting out there that shouldn't be playing. So,
so what can be done about it, Damien? What can be done? What can be done about it?
That's Stephen. I wish I had the answer. It's not like basketball as far as tanking. Football it's a violent contact sport, and so when you have a front office, taking one approach where they're trying to accumulate, draft capital and build towards the future, I think the product on the field is terrible, and it's bad for everybody. It's bad for the fans. It's bad for the players. It's bad for the coach because who's to say that you do all of this, and if you're the coach, that you're going to have the opportunity to see this whole thing through? Okay, a lot of times with these billionaire owners, they get tired, and they say, you know what? We want to switch this. I want to get rid of this whole staff and bring in a new staff and let them finish the process. So this whole thing stinks, in my opinion.
Damien Woody, appreciate you, man. Looking forward to tonight's game. Who you got, Tennessee or Jacksonville?
I got Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they're desperate, and I got the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Appreciate you, my man. We'll talk soon, buddy. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too now.
One and only Damien Woody right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, when it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need to get to a short list of your qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screening questions based on your job requirements, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. Discover why more than